If you are an international student in Japan and wondering how to find a job here, this video is for you. In just 15 minutes, I will walk you through everything you need to know to prepare for job hunting in Japan. Let's go! The first thing you need to know is that job hunting in Japan starts really early. Most large and mid-sized companies hire new graduates all at once, and the selection process usually takes place about a year before your graduation. For example, let's say you are graduating in March 2027. That means you will need to start applying between January and May 2026, depending on the company. But here is the catch. Starting your preparation right before the selection is often too late. There is a lot you need to do and learn before that, and I will talk about it in detail in a moment. Long story short, I recommend starting your preparation at least 2 years before your graduation. So if you just entered a master's program in Japan, now it's actually a perfect time to begin your job hunting activities. So why do you need to start that early and what exactly should you do? First, company research. I guess you will want to understand what kind of work you are aiming for and what opportunities are out there. That means doing industry and company research. Start by choosing the industries you are interested in, then look into what companies exist in those fields and what makes each of them unique and special. This stage can take a lot of time, and it's crucial to organize it smartly. My strong recommendation is to create a table where you collect all key info about each company. Specifically, you can include columns like industry, key projects and company values, language requirements, test type, number of interviews, selection schedule, internship opportunities, and also expected salary. You can add more columns based on what matters to you. This table will become your best friend later in the process, and it saves you tons of time when you start applying. The second thing you should do is register on the hiring pages of the companies you are interested in, so-called My Page. About 2 years before your graduation, most companies open so-called My Page for students graduating in a certain year. By filling in your information early, you will start receiving updates on deadlines, events, and hiring activities. For example, if you're graduating in 2027, around April to June 2025, you will start getting notifications about applications for summer internships. In Japan, internships are usually not about gaining real work experience. They are more like a short introduction to the company, and often companies suggest short programs from 1 day to 1 week. Some people question whether they're worth it, but I personally strongly recommend applying for the internships for these 3 reasons. First, you get a chance to go through the full selection process before the real selection process. Second, if you pass, some companies give you a fast track or bonus during the main hiring round. And third reason is that you may also understand a bit better whether you want to work for this company. So one of the biggest reasons to start job hunting 2 years before graduation is that you can take part in this internship applications and learn from the process. Now let's go over the main stages of the selection process in Japan and how to prepare for each one. By the way, the steps for the internship selection are pretty much the same as for the main selection, so I will explain them together. Step 1 is so-called entry sheet. The entry sheet is like CV or resume, but with some differences. You fill it out using the company's specific format and usually through their online portal. Unlike Western-style CV, Japanese entry sheet also almost always includes short essay questions in addition to your basic information such as university, major, and graduation date. Common essay questions look like this. Why do you want to join this company? What past experiences make you a good fit? Which of our projects interest you? What did you focus on during your student life? The last question is called gakuchika, and it's extremely popular among Japanese companies. It would take a whole separate video to explain how to answer all these questions, so I will skip the details for now, but one crucial point is that your answers should show that you understand the company's values and what makes them unique. And here's exactly where your company research tables become super useful, so prepare it well in advance. One more thing, whether it's a Japanese company or international one, most of the recruiting process, including the entry sheet, is in Japanese. Of course, tools like ChatGPT can help you write the entry sheet, but for the next step, unfortunately, it won't be that helpful. Step 2 is the web test, in Japanese Tekisei Kensa. Tekisei Kensa means aptitude test, and in Japan this usually includes a mix of ability and personality testing. There are several types of tests, but most common of them are SPI, Tamatebako and GAB. Depending on the company, you will have to take one of them either online or at a testing center. Most tests have three parts: language comprehension, math or logical reasoning, and personality assessment. The good news again is that you don't need to prepare for the personality test. The bad news is that if you are not a Japanese native speaker, for other two sections you will have to do almost impossible. The problem isn't that the questions are super hard, it's that you have to solve them fast as native speakers do. And when reading the question takes you twice as long as for a Japanese student, well, you are at a serious disadvantage, just like I was. Just for context, I already had JLPT N1 when I started preparing for this test, and even at this level, I spent over half of my total job hunting preparation time on this web test. The speed is completely different from JLPT here. But enough terrifying facts, let's go back to the helpful part. To prepare properly, you first need to know which test type and format a company uses. Here is how you can find it out. First, preparation books. At the back, many include list of which companies use which test. This is the most reliable source. Second, use student feedback websites like One Career or Shukatsu Kaigi. You can just Google company plus Tексei Kensa and this kind of websites will show up. But be careful, sometimes students just post random stuff, so try to collect a good sample. Once you have figured out the test type, format and section, add it to your company research table. This will help you to track what to study for each company. Now, important thing. Some people look at Japanese students and underestimate this test, but let me say this very clearly. If you fail the web test, you don't get a shot at the interview. So please take this test seriously. If you're a genius and can pass this test without any preparation, awesome, I envy you. And you can spend some extra time preparing for interviews instead. But for most of us, a lot of preparation is necessary. I could make a whole separate video about how to tackle each test type, but in short, get a preparation book or borrow it from your friend, try every section once, find your weak points and drill them, and then just take as many timed tests as possible to build speed, because in the end, speed is everything in these tests. Step 3 is group discussion. This step actually may vary depending on the company because some have a group discussion and some don't. But if you do get invited to the group discussion, here is what you need to know. Simply saying, a group discussion is an interview with multiple candidates at the same time. Instead of just answering questions one by one, you are in the room or Zoom with several people applying for the same position. This makes the group discussion quite tricky and sometimes psychologically difficult stage. What companies are looking for here is not just what you say, but also how you interact with others. Specifically, can you communicate clearly with other people? Can you listen well? Can you build on others' ideas and defend your own ideas? All these points are quite important. Based on my experience, there are two main types of group discussions. The first type is the interview-style group discussion, as I call it, and it's probably the most common one. It's not much different from a regular interview, except that several candidates are interviewed together. Everyone takes turns answering personal questions, sometimes you give a short presentation or ask each other questions. That's why it's important to listen actively to other candidates, not just wait for your turn to speak. The second type is the group case interview, common in consulting and some tech companies. In this kind of the group discussion, your group is given a task or business case to solve together, usually in about 30 minutes. At the end, one or more members of the group present the results to the interviewer. Here, it's crucial to remember that you are competing with the case, not with each other, because the collaboration is the thing that Japanese companies really want to see from you at this stage. It's important to keep in mind that the entire team can pass the interview and the entire team can fail the interview. If you demonstrate strong communication and collaboration skills, you all may pass. So don't focus on being the loud or dominating during these interviews, focus on helping the group move forward and solve the task. Step 4 is individual interview. Interviews are probably the most familiar part of the selection process, but in Japan there are some very specific expectations you should know. First, let's talk about the type of questions you may get. One of the most common questions you may get asked is self-PR. It's a short introduction of yourself, your background, and your strength. You are usually asked to do this in 1 to 3 minutes, so you will need to practice keeping it tight and confident. It's really important to practice this question a lot to be as confident as you can be. For most other questions, career advisors recommend answers of about 1 minute. Common topics, common questions include your motivation to join the company or a specific department of the company. Then already mentioned gakuchika, which means what did you focus on during your student life. Then your strengths and weaknesses, I think it's quite a regular one. Why Japan? For international students, quite a common question. Then teamwork related questions, especially about communication in group settings. In addition, you will always get a company specific questions where the interviewer checks how well you understand the industry, company's mission, values and projects. That's why your company research table becomes incredibly useful here. It helps you to tailor, to adjust your answers to each company. To get a better idea of what kind of questions a particular company asks, check the student feedback on the websites I mentioned earlier, such as One Career and Shukatsu Kaigi, or simply ask your senpai from the university if they already went through the selection process of the company you are interested in. Another important point of the interview I want to mention is the structure of your answers. In the West, we're often told the so-called STAR format, which is situation, task, action and result, but in Japan you are usually expected to start with the conclusion. So the structure in this case looks like conclusion, reason, specific example and the summary, which again repeats the conclusion. At first it may feel a bit unnatural and weird, but it really helps your answers sound clear and, let's say, professional. Overall, interview preparation in Japan is quite similar to elsewhere, just you need to prepare answers that highlight your experience and strength, and also it's crucial to show how they are aligned with the company's values, company's goals and mission. For the majority of companies here in Japan, interviews are only in Japanese, so preparing the answers may take time, but with proper preparation and with couple of hundreds of mock interviews, you will get much more confident. Step 5, the last step I'm gonna discuss, is informal offer, in Japanese nainaite. Finally, after passing several rounds of interviews, usually 2 or 3, if the company thinks that you are good enough, if you are a good fit, if you demonstrated your strength, you will receive an informal offer. This is basically a promise from the company that they will give you an official offer before your graduation, so you can start working with them right after finishing your degree. Usually they give you 2 to 3 weeks to decide whether you accept this informal offer. Most companies expect new graduates to start their work in April, so if you graduate in March 2027, you will likely begin working in April 2027. But here is the tricky part and important part for international students. Even if you graduate in September, you will still usually be expected to wait and start in April 2027. That's because not just the hiring process, but also the training for new employees and other recruiting activities, procedures are done together for all students. So if you are graduating in autumn, make sure to ask the company in advance about your start date and be sure to secure the appropriate visa status if it's relevant to you. And the formal offer, naite in Japanese, is more like a legal step. It comes later and involves signing documents, signing the contract, confirming your status. So I won't go into much detail here because, well, we can't do so much here. So far I've told you the key steps of the selection process for job hunting in Japan, and now let me wrap up with a few personal tips that I wish someone told me earlier before I started job hunting in Japan. First, don't start late. The best companies, the most competitive ones in each industry, usually start hiring earlier than others. Some start 18 months before your graduation, before your expected graduation. Many of these companies have multiple lines of hiring indeed, but if you can apply in the first batch, I recommend to do it. Second tip is don't apply everywhere. Applying to random companies you don't really care about can be good for training for web tests, for example, but it also can burn you out. I would recommend choosing about 10 companies that you really want to work for and preparing for them well in advance. Research them thoroughly and write tailored answers, tailored interview and entry sheet answers for each company. That way your interviews will sound solid and you will have the energy to stay motivated. As for companies you are less interested in, you can always start preparing for them after you pass the entry sheet and web test stage. Tip 3 is don't underestimate web tests. You are not a native speaker, or if you are, you're probably not watching this video, but if you're watching, please don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to my channel for more information about Japan, not only job hunting but also many other interesting stuff here. So what I was gonna say, even with good Japanese, you might need months to get ready for this web test. I personally spent almost a year preparing for SPI and Tamatebako, the two types of tests, doing 2 to 3 sessions a week, a couple of hours each, like 2 to 3 hours. And to improve my vocabulary for the language section of this test, I memorized about 1000 advanced words, many of which even my native speakers friends didn't know, and I have never heard them before in my daily communication here in Japan. So yeah, these tests, they are not a joke, so take them seriously and give yourself time to prepare. So, to conclude this very long and quite intense video, success in job hunting in Japan as a student definitely depends on your Japanese language skills. But it's not everything. It's also about planning your journey, it's about consistency in preparations, it's about mental resilience. I know that job hunting in Japan can feel overwhelming. I just hope that this video helped you feel a little less lost and made the job hunting process clearer and a bit more transparent. If it did, feel free to give this video a like and share it with your friends who are also struggling with job hunting in Japan or planning to do that in the future. Also feel free to drop a comment or ask a question, and I will be happy to make more videos and go deeper into each step of the job hunting process or any other topics related to Japan you are interested in. And finally, don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you want a more honest, useful, professional, interesting content about life in Japan. Take care and see you later.